What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another EVE Online solo mining episode, the mining podcast. We're going to be covering a bunch of topics today. I'm going to be talking about fleet sizes in terms of solo mining, and also just pirate strongholds, and then our normal Q&A kind of thing. But I also wanted to kind of talk about more or less some more of my goals for this year, kind of in terms of EVE Online and mining and things like that. I thought it'd be actually pretty interesting since I haven't actually sold anything that I've mined this year so far. I thought it'd be interesting to actually just kind of stockpile it all. Literally just don't sell anything. I usually store all of my ore in NBC station anyway. So I'm thinking about just not putting it to market, not doing anything with it, and then at the end of the year, as an interesting kind of experiment, see how much ore we've kind of stockpiled through this whole process. I'm going to be mining in the Mackinaw today, as usual. I'm going to try to vary that up a little bit too. I've got several alts who have been kind of brought back to the Jita side out from other places they've been in the verse. They've been steadily kind of training into more mining focused roles. A lot of them did originate as the alts that you've seen in this series, but I do plan on getting them kind of all in the same area, and so that we have a little more variance in terms of mining, and we can talk and do a little bit more in terms of fleet mining. This character right here in the Mackinaw is by and large my command alt. She's the one that has the skills for like the porpoise and the orca, so I've been doing pretty well in the market lately in terms of selling and flipping commodities and things, so I might end up just kind of spending a day, maybe spend an episode kind of going shopping in Jita and get an orca, get a porpoise, get a little bit of everything, just so we have a good inventory for experimentation and stuff in terms of high-sec mining. I don't really plan on doing a whole lot in null-sec this year. I don't really plan on doing a whole lot in low-sec. I think that a lot of what I learned, a lot of what I experienced last year, and with the kind of the breakdown of the political regime in nullsec, I just don't think that nullsec is just a very intriguing place to do much of anything anymore. I know a lot of people who are in nullsec who they log in, they kind of do their daily thing, and there's really no incentive there for them to do much other than tread water, essentially, which I never liked being kind of nailed down like that. So I do prefer kind of being nomadic in a sense in terms of mining. So I'm probably going to dedicate an alt I'm going to dedicate another alt like I did previously sometime last year to doing nothing but going out and looking for the rare ores here in high sec. And also, this kind of is a good segue into the next topic I want to discuss, which is pirate strongholds. I saw a lot of comments on the channel talking about diamond rats, talking about their mining fleets getting obliterated by these NPC fleets in high sec, and I want to give some kind of context, and I want to give some perspective and kind of my insights on the whole pirate stronghold and the fleet thing. They're very easily avoidable if you know what you're looking for. 3 years ago, they were not a problem. 3 years ago, I would log in and just go mine. I didn't have to worry about any checking any boxes or checking the system for different things going on. And that's just kind of the situation that it is now. I've said in past videos, and I'm gonna continue to reiterate, whenever you log in to go do mining, go to the agency. Go to I think it's the exploration or encounters tab or something. There's a pirate stronghold section there, and look and see if there's a pirate stronghold in your system. If there is, do not mine there. And this tactic or this mechanic really only affects miners. And if you forget to check the agency and you're out on the grid and you see rat ventures, that means that there's a pirate stronghold in your system. If you attack them, then the response fleet will come in. Even if you don't attack them, the response fleet will usually come in. I've only really gotten into combat with that fleet once. I was in an orca I lost one drone, but I managed to get the Orca off grid barely. They will E-war you. They will, basically they're programmed to act a lot like player fleets. So I just avoid them. I just avoid them completely. The first thing I do when I log in is check for a powered stronghold. If there's one in system, I'll go to another system and mine, or I'll just, not mine that day. Actually, I hadn't done mining in high sec for the past 2 days for that very reason. There was a powered stronghold in the system that I was currently in, and I was like, you know what, I'll just not mine today. It doesn't mean you don't have to. You can go to another system and mine a few systems out, whatever. But if that powered stronghold is literally in the system that you're operating in, it is better to just not even bother with it. And what's annoying about that mechanic too is it's like those fleets that accompany the powered stronghold don't really go to rat sites. They don't really go to anomalies or anything else. They put out their own mining ships in the belts, and then they'll respond to those. And it's really kind of just a tactic to kind of put pressure on industrialists, put pressure on miners, which is kind of obnoxious. But like I said, if you know what you're looking for and you're diligent and you're always checking for those, then you can avoid them 100%. You just don't go out and mine with those guys. So I wanted to make sure I covered that in this episode. I did see a lot of people who got into mining, lost mining ships to those guys, and then ended up quitting mining. And there's really no reason to let it get to you that bad, especially when they're just so easy to avoid. The next topic we're going to talk about is I want you to just kind of talk briefly or talk a little bit about fleet sizes in terms of solo mining. And I see a lot of questions about should you have 3 Hulks or should you have a Porpoise or an Orca? So the discussion here is going to be just about, it's going to be very situational. It's also going to be it's going to be down to player preference on what you want to do, but I'll kind of give you my thoughts on fleet sizes and what I think is appropriate or what I think is maybe a little too much, as it were. Now, whenever I started playing or started mining in EVE, the meta was very straightforward. You were expected to, get a miner, get into a mining corporation, and then eventually you get an alt, and add another miner, and then you just keep kind of adding accounts, and then eventually you get an Orca and a Porpoise, and then you kind of have your own little fleet, and you would just kind of do things. You just keep scaling, over and over and over, and depending on the needs of the corporation, that would be by and large how you would judge how far you scaled up, which I fell into that trap. At one point I had 7 or 8 fully trained accounts. It kind of peaked for me whenever I was doing fuel blocks. I was making a lot of ISK doing fuel blocks, but also it was very tedious to maintain that kind of operation because at that point I was using a Rorqual. I would drag mine 7 Hulks behind that, and we would do really well. We would do very, very well. I could clear an entire ice belt by myself in a very, very short amount of time. But after a while, I just decided that it was just not enjoyable to manage that many tunes, because you have to look at it in terms of when you warp your fleet to an anomaly or to a belt or whatever, the amount of things that you do to kind of get everybody kind of situated, right? Every tune's got to get within range and open up the fleet hangar. They've got to start following, the command ship. The command ship then has to start, aligning to your bookmark or your celestial or whatever. So it takes a lot. And then as you're kind of going through the mining process, if you don't have multiple screens, I have multiple screens, but I usually don't put alts on those screens. I just put everybody on my main screen, and then I just use a client switcher. One hotkey just kind of cycles through all of my alts, which is fine because I do like having all my alts being full resolution and everything. But then in terms of like, instead of just like chilling, like what I'm doing now is I'm just chilling, mining with one account, and I can check DScan, I can scan the rocks, I can do other things. When you're running 7 accounts, you're 100% all the time pulling stuff out, compressing it, and this was actually before compression too. I really wasn't doing any like big scale fleet mining once compression came out, because most of the time it's safer to just drag when you're doing like ice in nullsec. And if you've got like ice in nullsec, you're doing a bunch of accounts, you don't really need compression, really. I think if I was going to do that now, how I'd do it is I would just have all the hulks dumping all the ice into the Rourke, and then after we did a run, I would just I'd be aligned to like the pause, and then once we got to the pause, I would do a single siege cycle, and then compress it all, and then go turn back around and do another run. I think that's how I'd probably do it now. But my opinion in fleet size really comes down to how much you want to manage, because the more accounts you add to your operation, the less relaxing it can tend to be, especially if you're doing stuff in nullsec. And also, just doing fleet mining in high sec, the more accounts you add, the more people will, it's very, what I like to call very bot adjacent behavior, and that's kind of how other people look at it as well too. They'll see 7 hulks or Mackinaws with a porpoise or an orca, and they just get triggered. People get absolutely insanely triggered when they see multi-boxers in Eve, and it's either due to the fact that they can't run multiple accounts, or they just hate miners, or any number of things can kind of trigger a hostile response from locals. So I'm always talking about like kind of making yourself a hard target when in terms of mining and stuff like that, and unfortunately having a big solo mining fleet definitely doesn't help make yourself a hard target. And also, if like a catalyst fleet comes in on the asteroid belt, and you've got 3, 5, or even 8 accounts you got to worry about getting off grid, yeah, it's as simple as just warping the fleet off. But the gankers are a lot of gankers will actually go after multi-boxers, because they know that there's only one person dealing with all those accounts. The chances of them actually just getting one of those miners down is a win. They're kind of banking on the fact that you're kind of spread thin. You're kind of overstimulating yourself with a lot of accounts. So with that being said, it comes down to like the area you're in, and I tend to advise people to mine kind of out in the boonies, away from trade hubs and trade routes and stuff, where ganking isn't necessarily a very common thing. If you're next to a trade hub, if you're like anywhere remotely close to like a major market hub, you're gonna have more problems with gankers, because they can very easily take something down, loot it, and they're not very far from selling that stuff on market and making some IS themselves. If you inconvenience them by being kind of out of the way and in a not very convenient area, then that's another feather in your cap as well. In terms of, like, I know a lot of people are going to want like straight up numbers, what I think is efficient, what I think is really good for a solo person to run in terms of how many accounts. I'd say I'm probably, when I bring all of my alts back to do the fleet mining, I probably won't have more than 3 miners paired with a porpoise or orca. I think 4 accounts is probably the sweet spot, 4 or less. Once you start going above that, then it just starts to become tedious. And actually, I'll probably only do 2. I'll probably do 2 Mackinaws or hulks, depending on what I want to do, and then like a Mackinaw or a porpoise and an orca. And the only reason I'm actually going to do 3 right now is because I'm running 4K max settings, and I'm only running a 3060 Ti right now. So that's got like 8 gigs of VRAM on that thing. So once I try to load up a 4th account with a 3060 Ti in 4K, things just fall apart in terms of, because we're just using, 3 accounts for me fills up my 8 gigs of video RAM. So I am planning on upgrading my graphics card here in the next month or so. I'm unfortunately dealing with the problem of actually finding a 4090. Stock is really low, and that's completely out of scope for this podcast. But and if I'm able to actually get a 4090, then I'll be able to do fleet mining, like fleet mining in the numbers that I like to do at the kind of resolution and quality that I like. So because I don't, because the goal for actually upgrading my graphics card this year too is to take the channel completely into 4K. Right now I'm like downscaling to like 1440p, which is okay, but not necessarily what I want. Like one of the biggest goals this year for the channel is actually go 4K. But also, in terms of just fleet mining in general, like upgrading that graphics card, can allow me to go up to the 3 miners and a command alt, or if we really want to just kind of I want to do some experimentation. I want to show you guys some crazy stuff. So I'll have the alts to actually do. If you watch, there's a fleet mining video I did last year, I think, where it was like Orca and then it was like 7 Hulks or something. I was also doing, I think that was actually, might have been before I actually built this new computer. I'm not sure, but I had like low settings and all that stuff. But I'm gonna try to like even break that record. I want to see if I can go for like 11 account high seg mining and just kind of show some craziness going on. But real world, everyday, operation, and I would never run like probably anything more than 5 accounts. Even then, I think it's a little much. The big reason I like use Mackinaws is because it allows me to have more of a chill kind of situation. Hulks are obviously better when you're boosting because they just have the lowest cycle time, especially if you're in like a system that gets the 10% mining speed boost and all that, and you're using like type B 2s, which is what I normally do. But I think even then I'll probably still run Mackinaws because I can stack more tank on them. I can they're a little bit more forgiving if I want to be slower on cycling through all the alts and compressing and stuff. I'll probably end up going with a Orca at that point. Probably Orca with a Tech 1 siege module, just because it allows me to stretch heavy water out even further than a Tech 2. I'll probably still have a Tech 2 on hand, but the point is we're going to be doing a lot of experimentation this year with like different fleet mining and sizes. If you're just now getting into mining and you're just been running like a single ship or a single account and you want to like start adding more, the best thing to do is just to go ahead and train a Porpoise pilot, and that Porpoise pilot will eventually become an Orca pilot, right? And then start boosting 1 miner and kind of get used to that. And when you feel like you get to the point where you can handle another miner, start training that next miner, and then just kind of keep going until you feel like you are kind of at the limit of what you care to micromanage and stuff. In terms of actually training these mining alts, I 100% suggest that you, even if you plan on maybe adding mining alts in 6 months or like whatever, as far as you want to say, go ahead and make the accounts, go ahead and make the characters, go ahead and queue them up. It's better when you're ready to get a new miner, a new Omega miner to start training, to have an alt or an account that already has a 5.5 million skill point alpha on it. That takes care of a lot of basic stuff like navigation skills, shield skills, some drone skills, right? And it doesn't cost you anything to get those alpha alts kind of already training. You don't even have to log into them. It'll take probably like 3 or 4 months for them to just passively train up to the alpha cap. So let's say you plan on eventually having 5 miners plus a Porpoise and Orca. Go ahead and make those accounts, go and get those alphas started, And then in 4 months from now, you have those guys are already ready to go. You know, train that 5.5 for free. And if you use my referral code, then, you know, just keep those 1 million skill points in your redeem window, in your reward window. Don't use those until you go Omega. You'll get more bang for your buck that way. And that's kind of my thoughts on the whole fleet size kind of situation. It's just, it really comes down to how much you're able. It comes down to a lot of things. It's like, how much do you want to like micromanage? How much do you constantly want to be worrying about, like, is everybody still following the Orca? Is, you know, everybody's fleet hold or fleet hanger or hold good to go? Making sure you're cycling through and making sure you're compressing everything. And it's also about like just matching their skills as well. It's like you want to try to get their shield, you know, skills all at the same level, get their drone skills at the same level. If you're using things like Modulated Strip Miner 2s, making sure that they all have, you know, the crystal training and just getting them all kind of lined up so it's a little bit easier. And also just matching their UI. I tend to just pixel perfect match all my alts UIs. You can use, there's a video I have going over copying UI. That way it's just easier. I have every alt that, you know, their UIs, everything is the same, so that it's, you know, if I have my mouse over one alt's inventory and I cycle to the next one, I'm already in the same place for the other one. It just makes that a whole lot easier in terms of micromanaging everything as well. All right, the next thing I want to briefly talk about, a couple days, or I guess yesterday, the video I put up about maximizing mining and stuff like that, there was a comment about, you know, someone mentioning my explosive and my EM resistance hole on that fit I showed in that video. I want to kind of talk about resistances, and that kind of like triggered, you know, a topic for discussion there. So you can 100% omni tank your mining ships. They, you know, will pretty much be able to resist a little bit from every profile, but the area that I mine in, the kind of gank meta, is Catalyst, so it's better for you to just kind of tank yourself against what is commonly used to gank miners. If you specialize yourself in tanking yourself against Catalyst, you're going to do far better in terms of damage mitigation than you would if you were Omni Tank for that. And then obviously, if, you know, people in your area are using things like coursers or whatever, then you would adjust your tank depending on all that stuff. It's not like, there's not like a magic number or a magic fit that is going to save you. In most cases, no matter how you fit, you're probably going to lose that ship if you don't get off grid, right? But through all the testing I've done with resistances and, you know, countering things like Catalyst and coursers and everything like that, it's better to actually have high resistance and damage mitigation than just having shield buffer, right? So yeah, that fit 100% has probably the worst explosive and EM hull that you've ever seen, and that's because it is a fit for anti-catalyst. That's why. If the fit was designed to be a counter to any other type of weapon or any other type of ship, then it wouldn't look like that. So wanted to just kind of cover that real briefly. You can't just tank for everything. Omni tank is going to be great, but it's going to be lower than if you specialize tank against certain things. All right, let's go and jump into the Q&A portion of the episode. You know, everybody's favorite. Just going to be answering some questions. I'm going to try to be as specific as possible in my answers, but obviously a lot of things in terms of mining in EVE Online can be very situational. It can also be a lot down to player preference. So all my responses are basically from my perspective and my insights and things like that. Since we have all that kind of out of the way, and these are going to be probably a lot of questions that I've probably answered in previous episodes, but it's just, you know, questions I keep getting, so we're going to keep answering them. So the first question is, What is the best ship for solo mining? Now, that's going to depend on what you want to be mining. If you want to do high-sec mining like we're doing in this video, I would say that with a single account, a Mackinaw is probably going to be the best. It has a better tank, and it has a bigger ore hold, so you can kind of chill out on the belt a little bit longer. If you want to do wormhole gas huffing, it's could probably be a Venture or a Prospect. Or if you want to just, have more tank than yield necessarily, then you'll probably use a Procurer. Or if you're using like a Porpoise or an Orca to boost and you want to just get as much yield as possible in the shortest amount of time, then you're probably going to use a Coveter, or you're going to use a Hulk and things like that. It really just kind of depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish and where you're mining at. The next question is, how do I increase mining yield? This can be done by upgrading or by training your skills in mining, or astrogeology, things like that. You can fit mining drones to help with your yield as well. You can use implants like the MX1005, which gives you a yield boost, or you can also just get yourself boosted by a Porpoise or an Orca and things like that. Most commonly, the way to increase yield is by just skilling up your mining barge or exhumer skill, which should be the most important thing for a miner, to get those ship skills as high as possible. The next question is, what is the safest mining space? Well, unfortunately, the answer to that question is nullsec, but also nullsec has its own issues as well. In terms of actual like safe versus PvP versus other players, nullsec is probably the safest. You do have to deal with random rat spawns, like capital rats, like rat carrier, rat dread, rat titan even out there. And also, if you're only one account, taking down 3 battleship rats can be pretty challenging. So it really kind of just depends. I'd say if you're only a single account and you are paying attention to local, you're paying attention to D-scan, then I think high-sec is still pretty safe. But overall, nullsec is probably still the safest in terms of versus other people. Next question is, how do you find the best asteroid belts? In most cases, all asteroid belts in a system are going to be pretty much identical in what they have in them. In nullsec, it's not really meta to mine on the asteroid belts. You're going to be using anoms, and even in low-sec, pretty much all the asteroid belts are going to be pretty much identical in what they have, and also they have anomalies that can be accessed as well too. In terms of like finding the best asteroid belt, that might be like maybe a belt that has more rocks, higher quantity. There is really no better belt necessarily, but you can also use like a survey scanner. You can look at rock sizes, but generally speaking, rock sizes kind of alternate. One day they'll be lower size, the next day they'll be higher size. I call those small rock and big rock days. So that's gonna be kind of just across the entire game for the most part. But I usually have favorite belts, and those are usually just ones that are in a nice kind of a crescent arc. You have other belts that are technically clusters, which can be obnoxious to kind of travel around. So then it comes down to preference and ease of use and accessibility and stuff. The next question is, what mining crystals should you use? You're probably never going to use Type C. Those are for just burning rocks. They have high waste, low yield. Type A's have they have the lower amount of residue, but they also have a slower cycle time. And Type B's have like a middle of the road kind of residue, but they have a lower cycle. I like using Type B's just because when I'm mining things in like high sec where the ore is plentiful, then I'm all focusing on it's like lower cycle and stuff. So it really depends. If you're doing like rare ore mining and you're using crystals, you want to probably use a Type A. Same with like in nullsec and stuff like that, and also like Mercoxis, you probably want to use a Type A. But if it's any sort of ore that is plentiful it's probably better to use type Bs, type B2s. I don't ever use type 1 crystals. I've always just skipped right over them because they burn really fast. And type 2s are just, a lot easier they last longer in most cases. All right, the next question is ice mining profitable? Yes, it is. Not as profitable as it used to be, unfortunately, just because they increase the density of the ice fields and things, and so the market got saturated, value's gone down. But in terms of the reason why ice mining is profitable is because you have to mine ice to make fuel blocks to keep structures going, and everybody wants a structure, so there's a very good open market for that kind of stuff. It's kind of obnoxious to do ice mining in high sec because of just a lot of strange RP groups that like to say they control certain areas, and they want you to like buy mining permits. It's pretty much all the ice mining I've done in recent history has been in nullsec, where you just don't get bothered by that crazy by crazy zealots like that. So, but yeah, ice mining is definitely profitable, and probably if I had to pick, my preference, I probably prefer ice mining over ore mining, to be completely honest. Next question is, how do I avoid gankers during mining? Well, we've covered this topic quite a bit, but we'll kind of go over it a little bit more. A lot of the normal things that you probably expect: watch local, know the regulars, watch D-scan, be prepared to warp off grid whenever you see anything crazy or unusual happening in the system. Those are going to be the first telltale signs that'll give you, like kind of trigger your little miner sense. So be ready to bug out. That's the best way to avoid gankers, and make yourself a hard target. Instead of mining on the same belt, every time you fill up and coming back, just rotate through all the asteroid belts, and so you're always kind of moving around. The more you move, the harder you are to pin down, and especially for scouts. If a scout goes into a belt and sees you with a porpoise, orca, and you're boosting all that, they're gonna be like, they'll probably be here for a while, so they can go grab their fleet or grab their buddies, come back, and hope that you'll still be there. They'll probably bookmark you, but if you just constantly like change every like 10, 15, 20 minutes what belt you're on, that is a really good way to help avoid gankers and stuff. The next question is, what is the best mining implant? Probably the best, not in terms of like performance, but also just like accessibility, is probably the MX1005. That'll give you 5% mining yield, and that works just for ore. There's a Yeti. There's another one for ice. It's called the Yeti. So you probably need like a separate clone if you're doing ice mining and stuff like that. But yeah, probably the MX1005, which is a hard skill, goes in slot 10, is probably the best one. The Harvest set is good. They can be expensive. Mitchie's is also a very, very good implant, but very expensive. So if you're not in a situation where you can guarantee your safety, Mitchie's can be a bill for that one implant, if not more in some cases. I haven't really priced it in more recent history or more recent times, but it used to be over a bill for that thing. The next question is, how do I transport mined ore safely? Blockade runner all day. You should, if you're really serious about mining, you're going to be getting into a porpoise and orca. You're going to be storing everything in compressed form anyway. You can put expanded cargo holds on a crane or on any blockade runner, and you can take 12,000 cubic meters of compressed ore to market, which is just fine. That ship is fast. It's got interdiction nullifiers, it's got covert ops. It's very hard to catch once you know how to fly. You learn how to fly it, and you get really kind of proficient at it. I would not recommend moving ore with anything bigger than that. You're just assuming a lot of risk if you're trying to move ore with like a freighter, or even with like a deep space transport. It's just better, in my opinion, it's better to make multiple smaller trips and get your goods to market safely than to try to go for less runs and assume more risk. Also, you don't necessarily have to take mined ore to like Jita or Heck or any major market either. You could 100% post that stuff on NPC markets, kind of out and in random systems. If your prices are good, then most people will probably buy from you, because then they don't have to actually combat the ganking on gates and stuff that normally happens when you're leading into major trade hubs. So you can add a little bit of a convenience fee for that, but if you really just want to, sell for the amount that you potentially would sell in JITA, but just kind of off into like a random place in space, it's easier for you to get that stuff to market, and you can technically at the same price if you price it correctly. So it's kind of the best case. That's what I've been doing a lot lately. Actually, I've been just putting when I have sold, or more recently, like the end of last year, I've been putting it on just random markets, out in the boondocks for the same price that I would sell in JITA, and they sell because people are like, yeah, that's a good amount of ore, that's a good price, and I don't have to go all the way to JITA and hope to get back with it. So it's kind of a good strategy that I've been doing lately. Next question: can I mine in wormhole space? Absolutely. There's ore, there is ice, there is gas, there is risk, like everything else. If you do take like a mining barge in there, I would say probably, keep it at like a procurer level. I usually like to use the expeditionary frigates for doing any sort of Pochven or wormhole mining. And also using like a prospect or an endurance, probably endurance for like ice, if you're going to do ice in wormhole space, but also investing in like a prospect. If you want to go and do like wormhole ore, use a prospect, and then you could very quickly change the fitting on that ship as well to accommodate for gas mining. Also, the endurance, you can have the one mining laser, you can have your survey scanner, or not your survey scanner, but your probe scanner and your probes. So if you do kind of get if a wormhole does close behind you when you go in, you have the means to actually get yourself out. Prospect's a little bit more difficult to actually do that with like the 2 lasers and then not having a cloak. You have to kind of make those decisions. You can also just have like an alt that kind of runs with you to kind of facilitate a lot of that stuff. But yeah, 100%. Wormhole space is great. One of my biggest focuses, I was going to try to basically go live in wormhole space this year as part of like kind of like the year, my focus this year in EVE. I haven't really done a whole lot of research on different types of holes or trying to find a home. I'm very, very nomadic. I don't really like setting up in one place for a long amount of time, because I do actually kind of like exploring and moving around. I did a lot of like encampment type stuff with my time in nullsec, and even like my time in previous years in highsec, and I just don't like being kind of pigeonholed into a certain space or a certain system. I like my freedom, and I think that's a very big that's very important in keeping things fresh, is being able to move around and not have to worry about politics and all that crazy stuff. All right, next question: what skills should you train for more efficient mining? Astrogeology, the mining skill, mining upgrades, get your mining barge skill to 5, get exhumer to 5. Those are all increase your yield or lower your cycle time. Ice harvesting and things like that will lower your cycle time for ice harvesting and all that. It's kind of the usual suspects and everything. Next question is, are there any rare ores and where can I find them? Mercoxis is a good rare ore. It's not really rare. You can find it pretty much once you know the mechanics of it. It's in nullsec. It's in the anomalies. Once you have your iHub upgraded, you start getting the large, enormous, colossal, right? You'll get Mercoxit there. There are asteroid belts in nullsec that can have Mercoxit in them as well. But I think more recently, you would consider rare ores being like the rare ores in highsec and in nullsec, the rare ore, the border, Empire border sites. So if you're looking for the rare ores in highsec, you're going to be looking for 0.5 highsec systems that have a 0.4 lowsec connection. And then you can use the agency to go to ore anomalies and drill down where these sites are. I usually look at all the 0.5s, and then I view them on the map and see if they have a 0.4 connection, and if it shows it has an anomaly, more often than not they'll probably have an Empire border ore anomaly, which will have the rare ores, which are very, very good money. I usually take a endurance out there, and you can do like crazy amounts of ISK value on those things as long as you're willing to travel for all that stuff. So yeah, there's definitely rare ores. And the nullsec side of the Empire border is basically a nullsec system that also has a 0.4 lowsec connection, and you can find those from the agency just like you would the high sec stuff. The next question is, should I refine your ore or sell it as is? Most of the time, you know, your buyers are going to be buying compressed ore to put it in a jump freighter and send it out to nullsec to do manufacturing, right? If you plan on doing manufacturing yourself, then you would just refine it and keep it. There's really no point in selling refined minerals. The only ore that I would recommend refining to sell would be Mercoxis, because morphite it tends to have a higher value than the actual compressed variant, and also it's easier to move. If you take, let's say you take like 10,000 cubic meters of compressed Mercoxis, and you refine it into morphite, it's going to be more value in less cubic meter to ship out, which ends up making your logistics cost so much easier. Not the same cannot be said for other minerals. Your Zydrine, your Trit, all that stuff, the pyrite, all that stuff coming out of that stuff is going to weigh more than the compressed variant. So I guess short answer to that question is, if you're going to manufacture, refine it, keep it. If you're going to sell it, always compressed. Do it compressed. That's what people want, because they're going to be moving it themselves once they buy it from you. Alright, the next question is, what's the role of the mining foreman in a fleet? The mining foreman traditionally defines the person who is running mining boost, who is boosting all the other ships, who's facilitating logistics, and also just kind of organizing the entire mining op if you're playing with other people. So he'll be calling out, they'll be calling out ore targets, like, let's get this type of rock before we get this. They'll be calling out primary mining targets, just like an FC would in a PvP or a PvE fleet, calling out primary targets. So they're basically just running the show, essentially. And also, the mining foreman doesn't necessarily have to be in an Orca either. They can also, I've done mining foreman work where I've been sitting in a Hulk, and I've been just shot calling and worrying about logistics, bringing in haulers when we needed. This was before like compression, but also calling out compression cycles and things like that. So you can think of them just kind of like the shift manager, the guy who's kind of making herding all the cats, as it were. All right, next question is, how does the ore anomaly system work? So normally, let's talk about this in terms of nullsec. If you go out there and you completely mine out the medium ore anomaly, it'll disappear. And then in 4 hours, it'll reappear somewhere else in the system. And then I don't remember the exact time frame for all the different sizes of anomaly, leading all the way up to like the enormous and the colossus. But generally speaking, if you mine out an asteroid belt in high sec or anywhere, it's gone until the server resets for that day. Once the server resets, then the asteroid belts will all be back. Now, anomalies, they will come back. So let's say you start off your mining day, your corporation starts off their mining day in nullsec, you mine out the medium, the small, the large, you start mining out all the anomalies. Then after a certain amount of time, those will just reappear back in the system, and you can mine them again. Now, another interesting thing too is like I said earlier, all of those ore anomalies in nullsec will actually have Mercoxit rocks in them. You don't necessarily need to mine out the entire anomaly to get new Mercoxit rocks. It's the best way to do it if you want to do it in like 4 hours. But you can technically go and mine every Mercoxit rock in the entire system, and then about 2 days later, they'll all come back, regardless of if the anomaly was refreshed or not. So don't think that you have to actually burn an entire ore anomaly just to get more Mercoxis. You can basically, Mercoxis rocks will basically refresh every 2 to 3 days, regardless of if anybody's actually mining anything else. And in order to actually keep the different sizes of the anomalies, you have to mine a certain amount. So that comes down to your system's industry index. The more you mine in the system, you keep it at 5. If you have it at 5, 4 or 5, then that's what unlocks like the enormous and the colossal, right? The lower your industrial index is in that system, the less ore anomalies will be available to you. Next question is, can you mine in hostile faction warfare space? Yes, you can. And sometimes it's actually pretty fun to do so. I go out there with like a venture, a prospect, or endurance, and just mine in those belts and mine those anomalies while everybody else is blowing themselves up on complexes and stuff. I don't really see, there's probably not a point in doing it, because faction warfare space is probably going to attract more PvP than other low sec systems, so you're probably not doing yourself any favors by mining there. But you can. There are I know like some of the insurgency stuff, there are some mining objectives and as well, but if you want to mine in faction warfare space, 100% you can do it. Probably not the best idea, but Next question, what is the best way to transport large quantities of ore? This kind of goes back to saying like my beliefs on using a blockade runner to just move compressed ore at like 15,000 cubic meters at a time. But if you really want to move massive amounts of ore, compressed or not, it's probably better to use like you can't use a jump freighter in like high sec, but that's what we use in like null sec. You'd load up a jump freighter with a bunch of compressed ore or just moon ore or whatever, and then jump it wherever you need. Avoiding gates. If you want to successfully move stuff, you're best to avoid stargates in almost every case, which in high sec you really don't have that option. But if you want to know how to like move a large amounts of ore in high sec, you could use a freighter with like some security, some buddies, or some alts in like security or combat ships to help you. But it's just not worth the risk. It's faster to actually take multiple characters, multiple alts in blockade runners to market, or even like one alt in a blockade runner to market back and forth several times, than it probably would to take a freighter the same distance once or twice. So it comes down to like how if you want that ore definitely in a certain spot, it's better to make smaller trips and better ensure your success than trying to take the lazy way out and doing less trips with high risk. Alrighty, the next question, what is the best mining module for your ship? That can depend. If you want more tank, then yeah, you're going to put like multi-spec shield hardeners on there. If you want more yield, mining laser upgrades. In terms of actual mining modules, if you want cheap, then you go strip miner 1s. If you want a little bit better yield, you can go modulated strip miner 2s with crystals. It takes more skills to get into that, but yeah. Then also there's ore strip miners. They're expensive. They're very attractive to people who scan you and want to potentially gank you, because gankers are normally after a high value or a high kill mail. So when you have like ore strip miners, faction modules on your ship, then you're gonna be primary target, because they can just get a crazy kill mail to show off to their buddies. I would say if you don't mind the training time, just go with modulated strip miners with some Tech 2 mining crystals, and you'll be good to go. It's probably the best. And then you can kind of split your lows between mining laser upgrades, damage control, things like that, just to help with damage mitigation and all of that stuff. Right, next question is it worth training for mining leadership skills? If you're a solo account and you're just kind of running a Mackinaw or a Retriever or whatever, probably not. If you plan on actually adding another account to your mining operation, then yes, it's probably worth going in and start to train in that stuff, but not if you're just strictly just running a single mining ship. If you're part of a corporation that also does mining ops and you want to be able to help out, then yeah, it could be useful to have those skills already trained, but it really is going to depend on what you plan to do. And in most cases, like, your playtime might actually not line up with your corporation's mining alts. You might find yourself playing by yourself even in a corporation, and if you don't have additional accounts to kind of make those leadership skills useful, then it's probably not worth the training into them. I'd probably, you know, focus more on tank, or more on tank skills, more on shield skills, and more on navigation skills and mining drone skills than try and go leadership. I usually dedicate one account to mining leadership, one account that does nothing but perfect, you know, porpoise or orca boosting to help with, you know, anything else that I'm doing. Next question is, are there any hidden asteroid belts or special mining sites? Going back, I guess you could say the Empire border rare ore sites are hidden. Once you kind of know the mechanic of how they spawn, they're, you know, really easy to find, but I think that they would probably fall better into like the hidden category of things. But there's also ore inside of if you go and do like ratting and different rat sites and stuff, or different mission sites, when you're just doing like PvE missioning, there are Veldspar rocks, and there are mineable rocks in those areas as well. One of the biggest things in nullsec is the lack of trit, the lack of Veldspar out there. But if you actually go out there and do DD sites and other combat anomalies, there are ones that actually do have Veldspar in them. So they're not very big rocks, but you have a little bit of access to trit in those as well. Not necessarily hidden, but definitely not kind of like in your face available for the most part. Alright, next question. Can I mine moons, and how do you do it? Moon mining is done with Athenors. You have to have a structure. It has to have a moon mining drill. It has to be anchored on a moon mining beacon, and then also the owner of that structure has to extract a moon fragment from a moon, and eventually it'll come frack and you can mine it. So it's possible as a solo miner to have access to moons by having your own structure, but that also can just be kind of probably not advisable, because there's a lot of groups out there that will purposely go after corporations that are just a single player and who have structures. What I've done in the past as a solo miner is I've just, you know, kind of talked with other corp people, corp leaders and things like that, who might have moon fracks that they're not able to get 100% off field, and I'll come in and offer to help mine the moon, and whatever terms are agreed upon. You know, that's usually a good way to access moon mining and as a solo player, and a lot safer. It requires you not to have to put down a structure and further risk yourself to like war decks and things like that. And also, if you're wanting to do things like reactions and a lot of like high-end manufacturing, then you're going to have to, you know, do some moon mining, because that's just stuff that goes into that pipeline that is just really unavoidable. Next question is, what is the role for mining boosts? How do they work? Essentially, mining boosts are, you know, equipped to mining foreman burst modules on a orca and a porpoise. Those are command ships, and what they do is when they go, they'll cycle and they'll go off in a radius, and any miner in a barge or exhumer or an expeditionary frigate or whatever that is in the fleet with that command ship will get basically a bonus. Those bonuses can be faster cycle time and range. It can be shield. It's not just mining boost either. You have shield boost, armor boost, information boost. But since the question is talking strictly about mining boost, you have essentially the mining preservation, which can make your Tech 2 mining crystals, or just mining crystals in general, last longer. And then you have optimization charge and everything, and there will increase your range for your mining lasers, and also the cycle time for your lasers. So it just makes mining faster and more efficient. That's what they do. Next question is, how do I know if a system has been heavily mined recently? Well, if you're in nullsec, you go to the anoms, you see there's no crocite, and the kernite rocks are gone, the mercoxite rocks are gone, and you know there's only a few things left in the anomalies. Probably been mined pretty heavily. If it's high sec and all the belts are pretty much stripped of all of the tech or level 2 or level 3 ores, and it's probably been mined pretty heavily. And that's like your concentrated Veldspar, your dense Veldspar, or any of the other variants of Plague, like Azure or whatever. People have been just kind of cherry picking it. Another way to know if a system is heavily mined in is looking at their industry index in nullsec. So if they constantly have like 200% past level 5, then that means they're mining that system a lot. So that's a good way for actually PvP people to track down good systems to hunt miners, actually, because like it's like a two-way road with that. Next question is, are there any mining events or competitions in EVE Online? Not really. There is some insurgency, or I mean, I want to say like in not faction warfare, but there are events that you can go and you could basically mine a bunch of stuff and for missions and stuff like that. So I guess the answer to the question is yes. They usually take a number of people to do. I want to say like the Homeland operations have some mining events and stuff like that, or like Winter Nexus was technically a mining event for the ice mining. So there are some. They're not crazy lucrative. I want to say the Homeland operations have like specialized ore that isn't going to fit into the normal manufacturing pipeline, so they're kind of just sold as is when you get them out of there and things. But there's a few. I would like to see more mining events and competitions, but so far we're pretty they're pretty limited on what it is. Next question is, how do you find the best asteroid composition for manufacturing? Well, you're going to look at whatever you're building, whatever you're trying to build, look at the input materials, and then go to the market, look at the different ore types, and figure out which ore from its info panel has the highest yield of those materials. If you're looking at things like isogen, noxium, you're probably going to be looking at rare ore sites, low sec, Poshman for like things like Rakavine and Spudmain. If it's like trit, if you need a lot of trit for whatever you're doing, you're going to need a good amount of Veldspar. And for moon mining will have a lot of pyrite and mexilite in it. So it really just kind of depends on whatever your current manufacturing need is, and then you just kind of look at all the ore types and see what is better per cycle for whatever material you need and where it spawns at. In most cases, if you're doing manufacturing, you're going to have to be kind of everywhere. You're going to be doing some high sec and null sec mining, and then you can either pick between doing a low sec Poshman or going after rare ore sites to get kind of everything else kind of in the middle. Alright, next question is, can I mine while AFK? Is it safe? You can. It's probably not very efficient. Even like if you're like drone mining AFK, if you put one drone on every rock and then you walk away for like 10 minutes, if that rock dies, that drone's not going to go to another rock automatically and keep mining. Same with lasers. If your mining harvester, kill the rock, it's not going to automatically apply to another rock, right? You still have to kind of be semi-AFK. It's not safe either, because a lot of people will, they'll warp to the belt. They'll try to see if you're AFK or not. If they suspect you are, then you become like a prime target for ganking and stuff. So I really do not recommend AFK mining. Semi-AFK, yeah. I mean, you're going to sit there with your lasers on. Maybe your drone's out mining. Maybe you're doing something on the market. Maybe you're messing with a fit. Maybe you're messing with another alt. You're not completely AFK. You're just kind of semi-AFK is probably the best way to do it. But full-on AFK, the roster is not big enough. And, after you might be able to walk away for like maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then you're going to have to be back there to turn on a harvester or reassign a drone. So not really recommended. Next question is, can I mine gas clouds and what are the risks? Yeah, gas clouds is a very, very profitable way to make good ISK. You can find gas clouds in low sec. You can find it in wormhole sites. The risk in nullsec, you can even find gas clouds in nullsec, but some gas clouds will actually do periodic damage. So depending on what gas sites you're on, you might have to tank for a certain damage profile. And also in places like at least like nullsec, actually no, I think wormhole space, if you're going to a gas site in wormhole space, and after a while, when you first warp in there, after a while there will be NPCs that show up. So you have basically an invisible ticking clock to kind of be prepared for. You can also find gas clouds in high sec, but it's really rare to find them because there's just a lot of competition out there for that kind of stuff. The next question is, well, actually, this will be the last question we do, but what is the most valuable ore in EVE Online? I would say hands down the most valuable ore is mercoxit and its morphite component. That is going to be the highest value byproduct. Morphite is by far the most valuable that you could go after right now, and also any ore that has high amounts of like noxium or isogen is going to be right up there at the top of the list as well. I have done dedicated mercoxis mining in nullsec, where that's the only thing I would mine. You usually do have like kind of a drought every 3 days or so, unless you're traveling or exploring or going to a bunch of different systems looking for it. But yeah. And also Spudmane is really good too. But Spudmane is really good, and you can get that out of Poshman because it has a lot of different materials in it that is really great to export out of Poshman if you're going to be doing like manufacturing inside or in like high sec, and you don't necessarily want to like worry about all the crazy drama that goes on in null sec. So that is the most valuable ore. But that's going to be pretty much a wrap for today's episode. I appreciate you guys for watching, and to be quite honest, I wasn't actually expecting to do a lot of solo mining episodes this year, but I know that you guys have been pretty vocal about this series and how you guys like it and everything like that. So as long as you guys are into it, as long as you guys enjoy it, I will keep doing it. Maybe we can go try to get to that episode 100 or even more. Keep asking questions, keep engaging, keep talking to me through the comments, and I'll keep hopefully entertaining you guys with this stuff. So if you want to like support the series or support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. That directly supports everything that I do here. And also hit that like button, turn on notifications so you know when new videos go live, and hit that subscribe button and all that good stuff. My next big stretch goal for the channel is getting to 50,000 subscribers. So make sure you're subscribed and share the channel out, for anybody who might be into mining in EVE, or maybe wants just to like learn a little bit more. But with that being said, I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.